toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Patriots Touchback Podcast. It is Season 3, Episode 65, and we are continuing our run into the NFL Draft with the tight end class. It's some good players in there. Obviously, there's not many names we're going to mention tonight. I think it's going to be a deep dive on the prolific ones, but all of them are in the Patriots' reach in this draft, especially in round one. We will get down to it. I've got Kieran on board with me tonight. So thank you for joining me, mate. Please make sure, guys, that you smash the like button, gog spike the subscribe button. You tell all your friends, you follow us on social media platforms, and you make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify and on Apple as well. Remember, we are on the road to 100 subs. We want to get there by the time the NFL draft rolls along, which is literally in just under 4 weeks' time. We're 12 off, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And we are also going to be at the Hippodrome event in London on the 23rd of April, which will be an absolute doozy. Kieran, how are we doing, mate? How's your Saturday been? Because obviously we was live yesterday. And big thank you to Joe, by the way, from LFG Pat's Pod for coming on last night. That was great fun. How are you, mate? How was your day today?
Yeah, not too bad. Pretty standard. But yeah, that was good. It was good to have Joe on last night all the way from Rhode Island. Good for us to network and crossover with another Patriots podcast in the US. So that very much enjoyed that conversation. Good back and forth with Joe earlier today on social media about what you'd say is quintessentially British food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good for him to come on, and but we're back in draft mode tonight. You said it's not an overly great class, but I think if you want a pass catching tight end, there are plenty of options. If you want a tight end who can block, you've got maybe 2 or 3. So it's deep in certain regards.
It'll be deep in certain regards, yeah. We're also going to start off with the main tight end who is probably going to go. The reason why I said this at the beginning, the Patriots are in for all of these tight ends because there is a scenario where Kenyon Sadiq could fall. I don't expect it to go as far down as 31, but if he did fall to 31, I don't think. I think Elliot Wolf would be absolutely stupid if he didn't run that. If he didn't run the card in. So we'll start off with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, 6'3", 241. His combine was absolutely ridiculous. He ran a 4.39 in the 40. His 10-yard split was 1.54. He had a vertical 43.5, a broad jump of 133, and he benched 26, which is about 91%. Height at 6'3". I wouldn't say it's a bit on the short side, but it is more of a case of he's not quintessential. He's more rugged and tough. If you see the size of the guy, he's a bruiser. 10-inch hands, very good. Arm about 31.5-inch arm, so a little bit on the short side, but that's not really the issue that I have with him. I look at him someone like a Sam Laporta or a Trey McBride type of player. If I had to make my comparison. He's the number one tight end coming off the board. And when you just see his tape, doesn't matter if he blocks, doesn't matter if he's pass catching, he is just a specimen on the field.
He's ridiculous as an athlete, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure I'd put him in the same group as a Laporta or McBride because they're bigger. Kenyon Sadiq is 6'3", 245. Like, that's small for a tight end. He is incredibly athletic, as I said. He's incredibly fast. He runs like a wide receiver. He moves like a wide receiver. And I think ultimately his position in the NFL might be similar to what you see with like tight ends like Mike Gesicki, where they essentially are F tight ends and big slot options. That's kind of where I see Sadiq. I think he's one of them. I don't think you're going to get much blocking out of him. He's basically going to play that big slot receiver role. Not that he can't be very good and effective at that. I certainly think that's the case. But I think, him and Eli Stow is right at the top of the rankings. They're much of a likeness. And if you want someone to play a bit more in line, if you want a little bit of blocking upside, if you want a bit more size, then these really aren't the guys for you. That's not to say they're not talented, because they very much are. But they're not going to be to everyone's taste because of the size thing. And I don't know where that puts them long term, because you think about all the top tight ends in the NFL. So you mentioned Laporta would be one of them. Trey McBride would be one of them. Brock Bowers definitely up there. These are fantastic guys that have got size, and Sadiq and Stowers don't. So I don't really know where they stack up. So I think purely based off the athleticism and the receiving talent, definitely worth taking. But I feel like they're going to be a little bit polarizing.
Okay, so let's take a look at his strength, shall we? So he ran a 4.39 at the combine.
I mean, that's ridiculous. 4.39 for a tight end is a joke.
Yeah, it shattered the all-time tight end record. That is not tight end speed. That's the first round receiver speed stuff to do a 241-pound frame. The vertical, the ball jump numbers confirm what the tape has already showed. I saw a lot of tape with him. It puts him in DK Metcalf territory as a pure athlete, you could say, really. He's got quick twitch feet, beg your pardon. What are my notes on down here? Out of his breaks, they give him genuine separation against man coverage. Strong hands that hold up under contact. Tracks the ball naturally on back shoulder throws and sideline fades. Oregon lined up everywhere, and he never looked out of place at all. 2 touchdowns in the Big Ten Championship against Penn State, keying on him. When Oregon's receiving corps got banged up late in the year, Sadiq carried that passing game on his back. Big moment player. And, works zone coverage with real feel for soft spots in the middle of the field, which is a big, big target that Drake May always likes to go to, especially when it's a Hunter Henry. Could he fall to 31? I mean, which teams are looking at a tight end? I think you could see Washington are, but I think they've got more bigger needs.
I think the earliest I think Sadiq will come off the board is 19 to Carolina. They could be a team I think that could use a player of that skill set, because you look at what they've got already. The line's set. They've got their running backs. They've got Bryce Young in there. They've got Ted McMillan and Jalen Coker. So they need another receiver as well. But if you put Sadiq in that offense with what they've already got, it's looking pretty good. So I think that's probably where the floor is, or the ceiling rather is. I don't see him going any higher than 19. Then other teams would be like Philadelphia, like Dallas Goedert, excellent tight end, but he's only come back on a short-term contract again. I'm not sure he's a typical Eagles tight end. If you look at going from Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck previously, and then going to more recently Dallas Goedert, they're all bigger than Kenyon Sadiq. If they want to get younger and prepare for the eventuality when they don't have Dallas Goedert anymore, then that would make sense. But yeah, I'm not sure he'll be there at 31. It's a possibility, right? I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's off the board before then, but I'd say it's probably more likely than not. And yeah, Carolina to me at 19, I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense for Carolina, really. They've got like what, Tommy Tremble?
Well, they got what's his name? The other tight end that was at Texas, Jatavian Sanders.
We didn't see a lot of him last year, did we? Because he got injured.
He's kind of struggled with injuries, and he was a fourth-round pick, so he might be a nice depth option. Tommy Tremble kind of plays that hybrid H-back role and does it well. But if you want a legitimate offense, then obviously Sadiq would add a lot to that. And I was talking to a good friend of mine who is a Carolina fan, and we were saying that this is it for Bryce Young this year. Took the 5th-year option. There's been question marks over his long-term future in the NFL, whether he's going to be the starter for the Panthers long-term. He's very much an up-and-down player. And if you want to give him the best chance to succeed and be your franchise quarterback long-term, you've got to build around him. and adding Kenyon Sadiq to what they've already got could be a really shrewd move. But then the pressure is on Bryce to perform when you've put all that infrastructure around him. So I think that would make a lot of sense. But I don't know if I see many teams wanting to pull the trigger on tight end in round 1.
Not many, I don't think. Well, we have the potentiality, or I know we've got other needs, but someone of Kenyon Sadiq's stature would be, we're missing that explosiveness. And Hunt Henry's not getting any younger, so it would be beneficial. But there are other options. We've got to go further down. Some of the weaknesses he's got, measured at 241 at the combine, which is light for an NFL tight end. So you probably say he probably needs to put on like another 5-10 pound or something like that over the summer, over the off season, maybe to be at the 250 mark. Edge players will push him around at the point of attack until he adds functional mass. Blocking technique remains a work in progress. So he gets handsy, tends to lean rather than drive with his feet. He loses a lot of leverage battles as well. He has dropped a lot of balls that show up on the tape. Not the contested grab, but the routine throws above his numbers, where his eyes wander a half beat too early. Fixable, but it is there. Physical press coverage at the line of scrimmage disrupts his timing. And zone recognition still has room to grow. He can sit in spaces instead of working to find true open grass. So that's something that's easy. That's something Josh McDaniels can very easily coach into him. Very easily.
Yeah. He's an offensive weapon, right? I think that's probably the best way to describe him. He's going to be a pass catcher. You're not going to use him to play in line. He just doesn't have the strength and the body mass to do it. He needs to improve as a route runner, definitely. At the moment, he's kind of running past guys as a ridiculous athlete rather than route polish. But there's a lot to work with. Just looking at the draft order now, so Carolina at 19, as I said, I think that's probably the earliest he's going. Looking after that, a lot of the teams in the early 20s already have established tight ends, other than Philadelphia, who I've already mentioned, because they've only got it on a 1 year. There aren't many. The only other place I could see is Miami at 30, now that they have that pick from Denver, because obviously they're trying to rebuild that offense with Malik Willis. They've traded away pretty much everything they had. If you want to start giving young weapons for Malik Willis and reset everything like they have been doing, then I think he would make a lot of sense there for them, because they don't have anything really as a pass catcher at all at the moment. So I feel like, 3 prime line landing spots are Carolina, Philadelphia, and Miami. But if he gets past Miami, I don't think. I mean, obviously you would consider us, but I don't think they would pull the trigger on that. I can't see him being a Mike Vrabel type. But if he's BPA, then maybe he does end up here.
Okay, let's move into our next one. Our next tight end, Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. 6'4", 239, so really even lighter than Kenyon Sadiq. His 10-yard split was a 1.59, which is still pretty decent. I thought he was 4.51, so very good. Good vertical and broad jump. He's in the red, though, for the 239 mark. That is very light for the tight end position. Very light. But at 6'4", you could even say, could he transition into a receiver and be like a Mike Evans type of receiver?
He has lined up on the outside. I mean, he's shown that versatility. I mean, I don't know if that's the long-term play, but I think the same with Sadiq, right? He's going to be a big slot receiver, and you're going to use him over the middle of the field as a receiver more than anything. He's highly athletic and explosive. He's really good at finding the soft spots in zone coverage, and just like Sadiq, really good after the catch. But again, undersized, not overly strong, doesn't block, not a great contested catch guy, still developing as a route runner. So again, like they're kind of much of a likeness, and not all teams are going to like that. But yeah, he's probably going to go in the second round. I've got him here. It says, I've written down, will likely slot in as a tight end 2 to begin with, will be a nice complement to an established inline tight end to give another option on offense. So that's where I see Eli Stowers.
So he could potentially be back up to Hunter Henry. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, yeah, Hunter, regardless of whoever we draft at tight end, Hunter Henry's the starter, right? So yes, he would be a complement to Hunter Henry, but then, okay, we have Julian Hill to be the inline guy. But then, like, if Stowers is on the field, that he's running a route and he's going to be a receiver on the play. So, I think he's a solid day 2 tight end. There's some upside there, but again, just one of these typical big slot types that is not going to line up in line.
So I look at his profile for what we saw. Moving into 25, Vanderbilt Stowers caught 50 passes for 644 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2024. He earned first team All SEC honors. He returned in 2025, won the John Mackey Award and the William V. Campbell Trophy while posting 62 catches for 769 yards and 4 touchdowns. He earned consensus first team All American recognition across 3 seasons at the position. He totaled 148 receptions for 1,774 yards and 11 touchdowns. Covers ground very quickly in the seam with real speed, which forces safety to respect his vertical ability. Soft, reliable hands that adjust well to off-target throws and contested windows. Quarterback background gives him advanced feel for sitting in zones and finding soft spots. He breaks out of route stems with quick feet. That gives trouble to linebackers to try and mirror him in any way. Catch radius is outstanding. He's got, because of his long arms and an absurd vertical leap. He shows burst and awareness after the catch. Lines up you can line up anywhere, slot, wide, inline, backfield. Tough to game plan around that kind of level of versatility. And year-over-year improvement since converting to tight end has been steady and measurable. There is rumors going around that I've seen a few mock drafts about he's gone ahead before Sadiq has. But I don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, like I said, they are very stylistically similar, but Sadiq is just that bit more talented, I think. And I think they're probably going to end up having relatively similar careers depending on where they end up. But I kind of feel like a Stowers might be a good fit in San Fran. And I know I've said that about a few players, but Kittle is a really good inline tight end that can do a bit of both. He's an outstanding pass catcher, but he can block as well. If you put Stowers as the second tight end in that offense and they run a lot of 12 personnel, I think that could work really nicely. And it's obviously a second round pick. So that would be a good landing spot for him. I think that's where I see him, is kind of being that tight end 2, and maybe in time can become the main tight end. But at the moment, I think there's probably still a little bit more to go before that becomes the case.
Yeah, so as I said, he's at 239, so he's quite undersized. It shows up quickly in like the physical matchups at the line. His run blocking is undeveloped. His drop rate climbed in 2025 after a much cleaner 2024. So that's worth monitoring going forward a little bit. Or you could just blame the quarterback for Vanderbilt at that time. Can get bumped.
Taking more shots at Diego Pavia.
I couldn't give a flying fuck, mate. I just said can get bumped off his route by physical coverage, and he's got no special team experience, none in college, which can limit early roster value. That could be a deal breaker for a lot of teams.
It could be, but then I think if you're regarded as a second round tight end, how much special teams are you actually playing? So yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I mean, whoever he goes to may say to him, "You've got to play, and you're going to have to learn how to play special teams because you're not our starter." So yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of pencil in a landing spot for him, but yeah, he's a good enough offensive weapon to be worthy of a second round selection, definitely with the talent and the athleticism. So we'll see with him. Like for me, like I've just, as much as I like these guys and I think they're talented, I'd be reluctant to pull the trigger on them at their respective draft ADPs. I think I feel like we could be better served elsewhere, to be honest.
Okay, moving into the next one. We go to Ohio State. Max Clare. This one is 6'4", 246. Predominantly a slot receiver. He did a 4.7, which is it's okay, but it's not particularly great. He's got short hands, 9 inches of 1/8. Height 6'4", so typical tight end height, you could say. Kind of a bit like an Elijah Arroyo as well. Somewhat along on player comparison. After a breakout campaign, Clare entered the transfer portal in 24, landed in Ohio State. The move was wide viewed as a ticket to a bigger stage. He delivered a solid, quiet season for the Buckeyes, 43 catches, 448 yards, and 2 touchdowns across 14 games, 11 of which he started. He ranked third on the team by reception, receiving yards, and earned first team All Big Ten recognition. His career totals across Purdue and Ohio State at 116 receptions, 1,329 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 32 games. Despite having another year of eligibility remaining, Clare elected to declare for the 2026 NFL draft. Just reading this alone, that worries me a little bit. I get the reception, and I think he's more like a yak. He's more yards after the catch sort of receiver.
Definitely.
6 touchdowns over the course of 3 years. So on average, that's 2 every year. That's not something I'm keen on, especially if we're looking for a red zone target.
Yeah, but you got to remember in that Ohio State offense, there's a lot of mouths to feed.
Oh, I'm aware. I am aware.
Yeah. So look, this is the first one I would consider. At the back end of the second round or in the third, I think he would be in consideration. I think again, it's another pass catching tight end, but he's much better as a route runner than Sadiq and Stowers. He's got solid hands, really good ball skills. He's got a really quick release package, and he seems to get up the seam really quickly. He can do stuff after the catch. And whilst he's not a typical inline blocker, he's kind of gritty as a blocker, especially like on the run. He's not as fast and as athletic as Sadiq and Stowers. So, like, in terms of separating from man coverage, you're probably not going to get a lot of that. But for me, like, this is the first real fit for what we want. I think there's upside with Max Clare. I think he can slot in as a tight end too, and eventually develop to become a starter. And I think he's probably got more of a chance of being kind of an all-round guy than the other two have. So I like him a lot. He's kind of like, second, third round on that kind of bubble, back end of 2, early 3. That's where I see him going. So he would definitely be in range for us. And I think if he's there and there are other options at other positions that have gone, then I would consider Max Clare.
So loose fluid athlete can run the full route tree and bends with ease at the top of his stems. Creates natural separation from linebackers and safeties alike. Genuine vertical threat with the speed to climb past second level defenders on seam routes. He burned safeties at Purdue on those 62-yard or 32-yard chunk plays that changed games. If you know the tape, you know what we're talking about. Excellent production on intermediate and deep threat targets throughout his career, consistently winning at the catch point. He attacks the ball after the catch with real intent, reads zone coverage well, and has a feel for setting into soft spots rather than drifting through them. And, versatile alignment piece who lined up roughly evenly from inline slot and wide positions at Ohio State, and that giving coordinators a movable chess piece to exploit matchup advantages. So one thing that McDaniels does like to do is try and move his receivers and tight ends around if possible, or motion a bit better. Showed legitimate growth as a run blocker at Ohio State compared to his Purdue tape. He became more willing to fit up at the point of attack and improved noticeably when blocking on the move. And a multi-sport background and former quarterback experience give him a natural feel for timing, spatial awareness, and how defensive structures try to take away throwing windows. So what we're basically saying then, are we going to use him as when we do a trick play double pass or something? Because that's what I mean.
Like that.
Josh McDaniels might love that, yeah.
Yeah, so like I think Claire's solid. Yeah, I think he would be a strong pick in the range that I have him in. Whether we go that early at tight end, I don't know. But certainly no complaints from me if he's someone that we end up with.
No. Obviously, blocking remains a clear question mark. Hand placement is inconsistent. He gets grabby at the point of attack, which is obviously a penalty. So needs to improve that. Light for the position of 246. Excuse me. He will need to have functional mass without sacrificing athleticism. That makes him dangerous. Ball skills they're a little bit uneven. He had a noticeable drop issue at Purdue while the rate improved at Ohio State. He still fights certain throws rather than plucking them cleanly out the air. Production efficiency took a step backwards at Ohio. His yards per route, average depth of target, and receiver grade all declined. But I'm not going to really put blame on that because, as you said, there were plenty of mouths to feed in Ohio State, especially at the receiver position. So, I think this is low hanging fruit here. He was feeding off scraps, whatever, and whenever he did get open, he was getting open, but the quarterback was just reliable on his receivers all the time. And then durability is worth monitoring. He had a 2023 ankle injury, cost him most of the season, and his relatively light frame raises question about how he will hold up absorbing contact from NFL defenders over a full 17-game schedule. So it's mostly his size that seems to be the issue, really, in all of this.
Yeah, but again, he's bigger than Stowers and Sadiq. So, I don't think that if you've got concerns about the other concerns about Claire, then you've got concerns about the other two as well because he's taller and heavier. So, and he gives you more as a blocker. So, although he's not the finished article and he's not a typical inline tight end, he can do more stuff as a run blocker than Stowers and Sadiq can. So, in terms of being more rounded and more versatile, I think Claire fits the bill a bit more there.
He does. I still think that he will need to put on a little bit of mass over the course of the offseason a little bit, and it's his blocking. I think that'll be a main point moving into this. I mean, do you know who I could see him going to? And this would make me sick to my stomach. I could see him going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
To back up Kelsey. I can see that happening and I'll just throw up. I want to die. As the Grinch would say, I want to throw up and then I'm going to die. Anyway, so moving on to our next one on my list here. Now, he's the only real tight end I can safely say who blocks like a proper utilizing tight end. Sam Roush.
My guy.
At Stanford, 6'6", 267, big beef. We're talking big beef here, guys. Inline multi-role tight end, so he can play absolutely anywhere across the line. His free cone drill was a 7.08, which is actually pretty good for his size if you think about it. Bench 25, so we could do well. Broad jump 126, awesome. Vertical 38.5, very good. His 40 is 40.70, a little bit of a slow slide. His shot was 4.37. His 10-yard split was a 1.61, which is actually not bad when you think about it. But he hasn't got a big wingspan. But then again, this is a 6'6" tight end. I'm not expecting him to fucking play center. I'm not expecting him to play center for the Boston Celtics, are we? The comparison I got for him is someone like an AJ Barner, some of his size, if that makes sense. Maybe a Cade Otton to a certain.
Cade Otton's a good comp.
Cade Otton is a good comp. His 2024 season was comfortably his best. He finished 49 catches, 545 yards and 2 touchdowns, ranking second on the team in both receptions and receiving yards while leading the all-ACC tight ends in receiving yards. An 8-catch, 104-yard performance against Pittsburgh made him just the 8th Stanford tight end to crack 100 receiving yards in a game since 1995. Wow, that is a big record to break there. And a 69-yard catch and run touchdown against Boston College. Thanks. Showcase gear that size would suggest he does not have. He became one of only 5 FBS tight ends with multiple 50 yards receptions during the season. The accolades stacked up accordingly. All ACCS second team from the coaches. The Go Bowling Military Bowl STEM Scholar Athlete Award. That's a fucking long-winded name. And both the All Masters Award and Al Masters Award, and Tommy Vardell Award as a senior. He closed his career with 34 starts, 30 of them consecutive, and earned a Senior Bowl invitation that gave NFL evaluators an extended look at the complete package. Well, he is the complete package. He is the complete tight end in the draft.
Yeah, I have, at the top of my evaluation here, probably the most rounded of all early prospects who plays primarily in line. So, yeah, he's the most rounded tight end in the class for me. He's excellent as a blocker. I think he's going to get out and open things up. Like, we've got Julian Hill, but this guy can do it as well. He's incredibly smart. He's durable. He's experienced. He's really good primarily in the intermediate area of the field. He's not a guy that's going to stretch a seam and, beat a lot of man coverage, but especially as he's not overly long despite his frame and he doesn't have that suddenness. But if you're looking for someone who can do a bit of everything, that could eventually develop into a starting tight end, Sam Roush is the guy. Like, he's my guy. He's my favorite tight end in the class. Like, yeah, I think he's got the size. He can, and he's a jack of all trades. And I feel like that's gonna go sit very well with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. He comes out of Stanford. We've just lost a Stanford tight end in Austin Hooper. I feel like this is a Patriots player. This is a Patriots fit. He's probably going to be available back end of the third round, top of the fourth round. I think that's probably where he comes.
We've got two picks. We're at the back end of the third. We've got 2 picks at the top of the fourth. So
yeah. So like for me, I would take Sam Roush. I would slot him in as that kind of in that kind of tight end 2-3 role, depending on how Julian Hill's going to be used. You use him as an understudy to Hunter Henry, and the hope is that in a year's time, when Hunter Henry is out of contract, maybe Sam Roush can go on to be your starting tight end. At the bottom here, can slot in as a complementary blocking tight end to begin with and earn more involvement in the passing game. And I think that's exactly where I see him.
That'd be more like it come from the red zone. That'll be more likely from the red zone. People say, "Oh yeah, Sam Roush is the blocking tight end. It's all right. We're not going to worry about him." But at some point, there's going to be one play where Roush is going to just chip off his man and goes, "Nope, see you later. I'm going out here. I'm out open in the corner." And every corner of the season can, why do we let him go?
Yeah, but I think Vrabel just wants dudes, doesn't he? Like big guys, get out and do a bit, be scrappy, get out and do a bit of everything. That's why I don't think we're going to take someone like a Stowers or a Sadiq. I just don't think they mold well with Vrabel's style and his culture. And you look at traditionally what Josh McDaniels has had as a tight end in his offense. Very rarely do we have those F move tight ends. They kind of everyone is either in line or can do a bit of everything. I just feel like Roush is the best fit. Like I said, my favorite in the class, and I think he's going to go on and be a really solid tight end in the NFL. So, you heard it here first, everyone. Sam Roush is the guy.
Yeah, we got some comments in the chat here. Big up to Grandize at 12. If you show up doing live here, you may get 1K overnight. People love those videos. Joking. Yeah, no. I'm not going to throw up live on camera. I'll throw up if it does end up happening because we'll be on live.
I might throw up on draft night if Elliot drafts Zion Young at number 31 overall.
There will be a crime committed if that's the case. Big up to Ace Boogie 302. Next season, Bills 9-8, Patriots 7-10, Jets 3-14, Dolphins 2-15. I think you got the bottom two right. I think you're wrong regarding the build of the Pats going 7-10. Well, just because we've got the 6th easiest schedule in the NFL. I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all.
I think that's potentially very harsh on Buffalo as well as us.
Yes,
to be honest,
they'll also get a 10 to 11 wins. They're still going to be up there. They haven't fallen off the wagon. Well, just because they fired Sean McDermott doesn't mean they're going to fall off the wagon.
I think I mean, it's so hard to predict at this stage, right? Because we don't know what teams are going to be good and bad, and ultimately, nobody would have said that the Chiefs would have fell off a cliff last year, and us and Seattle surprised the world. Nobody had us pegged for the Super Bowl, so it's hard to say at this stage. However, I do think that both us and Buffalo will win 10 games. Like I think, as a baseline, like I don't think we're going to spectacularly combust. Like that's just not going to happen. Yes, the schedule is getting a lot harder, and we're playing a lot better teams, but still a good team ourselves. So I think we'll win 10 games. I'm not expecting 14 again. I think that's probably going to be a bit of a stretch, but I see enough potential wins in there for 10. And Buffalo, as long as they've got Josh Allen, will certainly win around about that many games anyway.
Yeah. My guy, Ryder McConville, did a short field breakdown of Sam Roush at tight end. Yeah, I think we've all looked at tape at Sam Roush, and I think we're overly impressed with him. He is the type of player that the Bills draft. He comes to haunt your team for years. You got Dawson Knox, though.
Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. I don't think
I don't think they're in for a tight end. If they are, no. It's going to be a third. It's going to be a 7th, 6th, or 7th rounder type at the back.
Yeah,
end,
but I can see what he's saying, right? It would fit Buffalo, but Roush is an athletic freak. Like, yes, absolutely, guys, great, genuinely. And you look at some of those tight ends. You look at some of those tight ends in the NFL. Like McBride wasn't a first round pick. Kittle, Laporta, Kelsey. A lot of the top tight ends are
Andrews.
Andrews. Yeah, a lot of them were not first rounders. Okay, yes, you've got the
Gronk.
Gronk. Yeah,
let's not forget Gronk. Come on, it was
obviously rounder. Kyle Pitts and Bowers were right because they were ridiculous in college, but you can find good tight ends in the middle rounds. And I do feel like Sam Roush has the chance to be the next mid-round steal that could go on to be a very, very good starting tight end in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm glad people are on the same wavelength for that. I very much hope that we draft him.
When we come to our mock drafts in a couple of weeks' time, it will be interesting to see if all of us end up taking Sam Roush at some point.
I tell you what, if he's on the board... When I'm doing mine in a certain position, exactly
if he's on the going. if he's on the board at the back end of round 3 and we've adjusted receiver and tight end, guess what? I'm fucking running that card in all day.
Well, because last year, Carl, when we were doing them, every single time Travion Henderson was on the board, I was taking him, and then he actually ended up here. So maybe Sam Roush is the next one.
Yeah, the thing is, though, I didn't expect us to get Travion Henderson, but guess what? We always one person on this pod actually gets something really right, and actually is actually spot on. Right, Kieran, tight ends that were not drafted in the first, but developed by year 3. That team got mega rewards. Facts, exactly that. So let's look at the strengths of Roush, even though we kind of gone further already. Combine testing was a revelation for a 267-pound man. 38.5-inch vertical, 10'6" broad jump are freakish explosion numbers. The best vertical of any tight end above 265 by 4.5 inches. His 87 athleticism score ranked 3rd among all times at the combine, and his 91.7 Spore Q percentile clears the critical 90th percentile threshold. That separates future contributors from roster fillers at the position. Ran a weight-adjusted free code with 7.08. That compares favorably to the likes of Sam Laporta and was faster straight up than Darren Waller and Kyle Pitts. For a guy tipping 267, that kind of agility in tight spaces is genuinely unusual.
Yeah,
he understands the full tight end job description, but does not flinch at the dirty work. That sounds like a variable type of guy. Yep. The immediate game between the numbers from 12 to 18 yards is the way he does his best work. He finds soft spots in zone with a feel that looks natural, gives the quarterback a massive target on 3rd down, and has the awareness to sit or drift based on what the coverage shows. Mark Andrews does that quite a lot for Baltimore.
Yeah,
I think to a certain degree. Production climbed every single year in a run for Stanford offense that never featured him as a primary weapon. So maybe New England might be moving to a run first option now with our pieces around Travion Henderson to work with. Production climbed every single year in a run first Stanford offense, going from 28 catches to 40 to 49 while adding 69 yards score tells you there was more in the tank when the passing game actually asked for him. He carries himself with maximum effort, whether the ball is coming his way or not, and better with the ball in his hands when his testing speed would suggest. Runs through arm tackles, keeps his legs churning, and he shows real balance in traffic on that Boston College touchdown that covered 69 yards. That's one touchdown I don't think I ever saw, so I might need to do a little bit of research on that one. But we did see a fair bit of tape on him. There is one legitimate concern though. Drops were a legitimate concern that showed up consistently on tape. Too many catchable balls hit him in the chest and bounce away, and at times he shortened his arms when defenders closed on him at the catch point. Blocking technique gets loose a little bit when he widens his base too much at the point of attack. He lunges forward, drops his head, and winds up on the ground. On reps, he should finish. Route breaks lack the snap required to create immediate separation at the NFL level. So he relies on length and positioning more than crisp footwork to get open, which will be a tougher sell against linebackers and safeties who can match his size. Ball tracking on deeper throws is inconsistent, and his 74.3 passer rate when targeted is a below average mark that reflects both the drops and some inconsistency, creating genuine separation on his routes. NFL defensive coordinators will test whether that number improves against tighter coverage. If he's predominantly going to be used as a blocking tight end, though, you would expect it to just be the blocking tight end.
Well, yeah, but he's still like kind of like improving and developing in terms of the traits and characteristics you need to be a pass catching tight end. But what he can do is give you that inline ability straight away, so you have time to develop that other side of his game. So yeah, I have. I think this question is right. Yes, I think you've got to have some every year, and absolutely. I've been banging the drum for Sam Roush for a while. So yeah, for me he's great. So
yeah, well, your draft crush is Sam Roush. Mine is a receiver. That's Jacoby Lane.
Yeah, I also agree with you on Jacoby Lane. I really
that's my draft crush. That's Jacoby Lane.
Yeah. So yeah. He can be a contributor certainly with the inline stuff straight away, and then you can just give him time to develop the other aspects of his game. You're not going to be relying on Sam Roush to catch 50 balls in the first season, right? Like Hunter Henry's still there. He's still the tight end one, so he's going to get the majority of the tight end targets. But if Roush can do one aspect and then eventually develop into the starter, then I think it's worth a selection.
Okay. Moving further down, let's move into... We've got a couple of tight ends here, and then we're just going to have a quick run through on who we think could go later on and who would be worth the shot at. Jack Endries, a tight end out of Texas. 6'5", 245 pound. His 40 was a 4.62. His 10-yard split, 1.59. Good vertical, good broad jump. Comparison... Maybe someone like a Cade Stover, maybe a Mason Taylor. It's a bit early for that yet for Mason Taylor because we barely saw because he was out injured. Catches everything thrown his way with sure hands and clean ball tracking through traffic. Boxes out defenders like a rebounder and wins at the catch point. Even in tight coverage, builds speed for his routes and gets on top of man coverage on immediate stems. Plays through contacts at the release and does not get routed by physical corners or linebackers. He has quick hands to snatch higher or off-target throws away from his frame without gathering. Lines up everywhere, so he can line up anywhere across the line. Keeps his feet moving on pass protection reps and rarely gives ground to interior rushers. Durable and available, started 38 of 39 career games while logging heavy snap counts. So, he's not injury prone. That's a good sign, but it does sound like he's actually... He's got all the traits of being a really good tight end here. I
think Endries is like your typical solid mid-round tight end, right? He's a move tight end primarily. I have him as kind of like a safety blanket kind of guy. Like he's not going to give you much after the catch, but 9 times out of 10, he's going to be there to bring in a first down. In a gotta-have-it situation. He has really good hands. He's really good in zone coverage. He's really good at adjusting to quarterback scrambles as well. So when the play breaks down, like he's good at, having that understanding at being able to ad lib kind of and audible and get himself open to make something happen for his quarterback. So he has a bit of alignment versatility. He's a good blocker on the run in space. But you're not going to really play him in line because he doesn't have the play strength or the athleticism to really do that. He's kind of like your typical solid mid-round tight end, probably likely to be a tight end too. I don't think he's ever going to go on and be a starting tight end as a tight end one. But when you're looking at him as a 4th round option, I think that would be absolutely fine. He can be a backup or a second tight end and contribute in certain ways. So certainly wouldn't be a bad pick if you're looking for a backup in that stage.
Yeah, he best fits as an F tight end, which in a system of value receiving for the position that can live with some blocking limitations earlier on. So, that's what we got there for. I haven't been overly bowled over by Jack Hendry, so I'm really honest with you. I know Nick has been talking about Jack Hendry a fair bit, but that's someone who doesn't. I mean, they've got other tight ends as well. We've got Justin Jolly. You got Joe Royer as well. Michael Trigg. Now, that's someone that's quite high up on my list, but not really much is spoken about him.
I think with Michael Trigg, typical tight end with a basketball background, right? So someone who is, reasonably big, has a great catch radius, jump ball guy, great at boxing defenders out, good hands. He can do some stuff after the catch, and he can be kind of lined up in different areas. But primarily is a big slot receiver. Not a great route runner, inconsistent as a blocker, despite having the size. Like, if he can develop as a blocker, he certainly has the size to do that. He's also an older prospect, and also has had a few character concerns. Like, he's been on multiple programs in college, so.
We definitely know where he's going then.
Yeah,
he's going Pittsburgh, isn't he?
Yeah, so I think there's some traits there. I do feel a lot of the time, like with these kind of like ex-basketball players, they're kind of one-trick ponies, right? So like they're red zone guys. So that's kind of where I see Michael Trigg. I have him as a mid-round selection, 4th, 5th round, probably. I'm not as high on him as some others in that range. But again, probably going to end up being just like a depth tight end that you're going to bring in the red zone, and he's going to do some jump ball stuff. But that's kind of where I see him.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do you want me to talk about Justin Jolly as well, or?
Let's talk a bit about Justin Jolly. Yeah.
So he's a former wide receiver. That's obviously converted to tight end. He kind of thrives in that short to intermediate game. Obviously, his experience as a receiver gives him natural receiving and ball skills. Really good ball tracking and a big catch radius. Obviously, not bad as a route runner. A lot of that stuff translates from his time as playing as a receiver. He's got like a real thick, compact build. Like, he's got some size, but like he's quite short. So he's kind of like short and stocky. He doesn't give you much as a blocker, and like he isn't overly athletic and overly fast either. Like, for a former receiver, like you'd expect a bit more movement skill. But I've got him here as short area chain mover and red zone threat. So again, 4th round pick, someone who's probably going to be a backup that can get on the field in 12 personnel, but unlikely to ever go on and be a full-time starter. But there's a lot of guys in like the 4th round range. There's an absolute ton. So like when we were saying in the rundown, like it's not a deep class. It is. The class is deep. It's just not very top heavy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those kind of mid-round contributors that you can get in this draft.
One guy that's been doing the rounds, and the more tape I watch on this kid, the more I'm like, if he's there in the 4th or 5th, we're snapping him up, because he's got but he has been, I think he's been climbing up a lot of people's boards, and that's Oscar Delp, tight end out of Georgia. It's 40, ran a 4.49, 10 yards, split 1.61, which is pretty decent. Good broad jump of 125, vertical 38. That's actually pretty impressive, to be honest with you. Height 6'5", so it is good for a tight end, but 245. Again, Kenyon Sadiq sort of, build in a way you could say. He needs help with his blocking, though, from what I'm seeing here. He is a bit like I'd say comparison more like a Daniel Bellinger, maybe a Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan.
I wouldn't. I mean, look, Oscar Delp can block, right? He's still developing as a blocker. He's got the technique. He just needs to get stronger and develop the power, right? I think he's raw, like incredibly athletic, ridiculous straight line speed. Again, going back to what we said about Sadiq, the guy that that should not be this fast as a tight end. Really good as a route runner, positionally versatile. He's a really good seam stretcher, just like we said with Elo Stowers. But yeah, he's got a lean frame. As much as he is a willing blocker and he can block well with the technique, he doesn't have the great power to move people, so he needs to get stronger. And I think the other knock will be at Georgia, his production was very, very modest. And once again, like, he wasn't heavily targeted. They've got a lot of other options in that offense. But I think he only had like 19 catches this year just gone. Like, he wasn't, a key figurehead in the offense. So Oscar Delp is a massive projection because he certainly has the traits and the upside that could develop into something really good. But he is raw, and he is very much like not a fully developed package right now. Like, he's not someone who's going to come in and blow the doors off you straight away like a Brock Bowers, obviously using the Georgia link there. So I feel like Oscar Delp, with what we're hearing at the moment, with how he performed at his pro day, with the hype he's getting at the moment, he's probably going to get drafted on day 2. There are some people saying that he might even be tight end 2 on some people's boards, like behind Sadiq, which I think is a bit of a stretch. For me, I've got him as like a 4th or 5th round guy. I'm definitely going to be wrong with that. Like, I do feel like he's going to get overdrafted because teams are going to bank on the incredible upside there and the projection, and he could be fantastic. But right now, he is a bit of a gamble, right? Because you've not really seen it yet. It's based on what you think might come in the future. But I certainly wouldn't mind taking a stab on him if he's on the board in round 4 or 5, and we still haven't taken a tight end. Then I think there's no harm in taking Oscar Delp.
Yeah, no harm in it all. Elite straight line speed for a tight end. It was verified on his pro day. Reliable hands with a very low drop rate across all 4 college seasons. Versatile alignment history, lining up wide in the slot and in line. Consistent 12+ yards per reception averages shows ability to work downfield. Good catch rate on targets, converted at nearly 75% of his career. That's actually pretty impressive, to be honest. Pass protection improved significantly in his final season at Georgia. He finds soft spots in zone coverage and settles into windows well. And he has a good forward lean acceleration off the line that gives him that quick first step. The weakness he does have, though, narrow frame shows up when defenders get hands on him at the catch point. Balls thrown into traffic, they tend to come loose. So he doesn't finish well through contact. Gets walked back in the run game by stronger defenders at the point of attack. 4 years of tape, and the production never matched the athletic tools on display. Physical corners and safeties who jam like a throw off his timing, and he does not create much after the catch, despite the speed he shows in a straight line. So it does sound like a track guy. The way they're talking about his speed is like it's a straight line, which is a tad worrying. But
yeah, I think personally it's quite similar to the projection that Isaiah Likely had coming out of Coastal Carolina. Is a guy that had like all the athletic traits in the world, not a great blocker, although I think Delp is a better blocker than Likely, and it was a bit of a projection. And he's gone on to have a solid career and just got paid like a top 3 tight end. So I think there's a chance there for Oscar Delp. I think he's very, very much in the same mold as your guy from Michigan, Carl, Marlon Klein. These guys are high upside, developmental, raw prospects that could develop into something pretty decent. As of now, they've got a bit of a way to go, but they could be sleepers, later on in the draft, particularly Marlon Klein, because I feel like Klein's definitely getting drafted after Delp. Obviously, the reason why Klein is so raw is because he's not been playing American football that long. He's German, so he's very inexperienced. But I think they're of a similar ilk. Both are really athletic guys, both really quick, gritty blockers, good after the catch guys, but like raw route running and raw, lots of technique based stuff that is very raw. And again, I've got here, never been a high volume guy. And that's the same with Oscar Delp. So they are very, very similar, but I do think that they are day 3 sleepers. And I feel like if you're a team with already has an established tight end starter and you want to bank on some upside, then Klein and Delp are going to be right in that, that frame of mind. So
yeah. So Marlon Klein ran a 4.61 in the 40 and a 1.64 10-yard split. Good vertical ability. He's 6'6", so perfect for a tight end. 248, so he's close to it, close to being the right, probably another 5-10 pound maybe. He might be up there with the right class there. As a Michigan Wolverines fan, it was mostly our defense that kept bailing us out and the running game that kept bailing us out as always. But the one strong point was Marlon Klein at tight end. He was always there to bail out the quarterback. So I've forgotten who our quarterback's name is. I think he's now
Bryce Underwood, isn't it?
Bryce Underwood. I think he's now transfer portal. I think. I'm not sure where.
Yeah, he didn't really kind of hit the heights today.
No, he didn't. He didn't, which is a bit disappointing, really. Again, reminds me of an AJ Barner, maybe a Luke Musgrave, maybe in that sort of ballpark. He's got good, outstanding top end speed for his size. Long strider who eats up ground once he gets rolling. That's pretty good. Strong hands at the catch point with real grip strength. Versatile alignment profile, so he's lining up in line and slot at H-back and even split out wide. So you can put him literally anywhere. Competitive physical run blocker who brings effort and a wide base. He drove defenders down the line effectively on angle blocks throughout 24 and 25. Legitimate development upside given he only started playing organized American football in high school. There is still a lot of untapped ceiling here for the right coaching staff. Tough over the middle of the field with 0 fumbles in his college career, knock on wood. And quick initial release of the line of scrimmage that puts defenders on their heels before they can jam him. That creates early separation, even when the route itself is still developing. I wasn't all shocked if New England took a flyer on him and say like round 5.
Yeah, he's a flyer, right? He's an upside flyer, and that's what you're aiming to get on day 3 of the draft.
Could the Pats double dip? Could the Pats double dip?
Potentially, but then I think if you're double dipping, you're carrying 4 tight ends on the roster next year because you've got Hunter Henry and Julian Hill under contract. You're not going to release one of these draft picks and stick them on the practice squad because they could get poached. I don't really see us carrying 4 tight ends. So considering last year we only really carried 2 for a while until CJ Dupree obviously was on the main roster and then was inactive for most games. So I don't think that will happen. So personally, I don't think so. But yeah, Klein's a high upside guy. Joe made a point last night and said, do you think, is it likely that Vrabel drafts a Michigan guy, which is, obviously with him being so staunch Ohio State. So maybe he might not be in on Marlon Klein, but I certainly think there's a lot to like there.
That did grind me a bit. I'm thinking just because they're rivals, it doesn't. I don't like Ohio State. I don't like their plays, like the coach, I don't like anybody from Ohio State. But when it comes to the draft, I'll have you on the Patriots because you are a very good player.
I just want to pick up on this point from Grandizer here about Delp being listed as a 7th round prospect.
Who the hell said that?
Yeah.
Who the hell said that, Grandizer?
At the moment, PFF have Oscar Delp ranked 215, which puts him as a 7th round pick. So But I would expect, because I know Trevor Sycamore is the one that does the big board. I would expect when the updated big board comes out that he will be moved up a lot. And I think so. To kind of answer this question and add some context to this, I think that's kind of prior to like the recent hype that he's getting. I think you will see in the next couple of weeks when more big boards get updated, Delp will be a lot higher on the consensus rankings for a lot of places. PFF haven't updated their draft board for 5 days. So I would imagine by next week, Delp is probably a lot higher than that. Probably, I mean, they've got Sam Roush at 87. I reckon Delp is going to slide in between Roush at 87 and Trigg at 106. So you're looking at on the third, fourth round periphery. So that's kind of, I think, explaining that right there. So, but like, yeah, there's a lot of players that at this stage are being kind of overvalued and undervalued in terms of their consensus rankings and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't think Delp's getting to the 7th round at all. Like, I'd be surprised.
I don't think so.
Round 4.
I'd be done. I'd be dumbfounded if that happens.
There's a few later guys. I think so. I'll just run through them quickly on this list, Kyle. So Josh Cuevas from Alabama. I think he's a fullback. Personally, I think he's going to end up being a fullback, similar to what Jack Westover just done. I don't think he has enough long-term upside to stay at tight end. I think he ends up moving to fullback. He already has played a bit of H-back for Bama. Joe Royer, you mentioned him, Carl, from Cincinnati. Older prospect, good ball skills, high football IQ, competitive, tough, pretty good athlete, and size and speed. Again, probably like a solid 4th round pick with the rotational likelihood for him. Joe, last night, our guest from LFG Pat's Pod, was high on Eli Raridan from Notre Dame. Again, I think he's probably 5th, 6th round. Very big, tall, long, massive catch radius, big vertical seam threat, the basketball background, willing and aggressive blocker, big hands. But he's quite linear, and he's got a lot of injury history. So you could get a decent value out of Eli Raridan. Miles Kitzelman, I think, is a blocking tight end only that could end up being a fullback too, but I think he's probably more of an inline blocking tight end, similar to what we have with Julian Hill, like a blocking specialist. I think, again, probably like a 6th round pick for him. And then you've got Tanner Koziel from Houston, who's massive. He's like 6'8". And Dallin Bentley from Utah, who are all, I think, are late rounders, 6th or 7th round, that have some traits, but probably not going to be, contributing much early on in their careers, and are probably going to be like depth pieces more than anything. But there's a lot of names, so take your pick, right?
yeah, take your pick. Listen, it's not top heavy, but there is a smattering around the middle of the round, so it's going to be who we go for. What will suit the system more be Sam Roush. I personally, as a Michigan fan, I would love if we took Marlon Klein later on, but that's only going to happen if we don't pick anybody up in the first 3. If we don't pick anyone up in the first 3 to 4 rounds, then I think, right, we'll fling a tight end in like the back end of the draft at day 3 or something or other.
Like the way I see it is, I'm probably not going to be massively interested if it was me in Sadiq and Stowers, just for the value and what they are as players, like talented, but probably just not great fits for us. If Max Clare and Sam Roush are available in their respective ranges, yes, 100% would consider that. I would probably swerve Trigg, Jolly, Endries, and then you're looking at a Klein. You're looking at Delp, and then I agree with Joe. I think if you're waiting until like round 6, I think my favorite guy in that round is probably Raridan from Notre Dame. So, yeah, there's kind of like different tiers of guys depending on what stage of the draft we feel like taking someone, but there's definitely plenty of options for the Patriots.
Yeah, there is plenty of options. Okay, we've gone through the tight ends. Now, if you were sitting on I would say if you're sitting on pick 31, but would you take a tight end at 31?
No, I wouldn't.
Right, okay. So if you was on the board, let's say 2nd or 3rd round, which tight end are you taking?
2nd round, this is a really tough question, right? Because as much as I love Sam Roush, I'm not taking him in the second round. Like it's too high for his draft projection. So second round, if I'm taking the tight end, Max Clare. Third round onwards, Sam Roush every single day of the week. Graham, what's that draft day quote from the film? What was the name of the player? It's just what was his name? You've seen the film.
What was the film?
Draft Day.
Uh,
Because there's that scene where Kevin Costner's character, he has it on the bit of paper, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Vontae Mack.
Vontae Mack, that was it.
And the bit of, he opens up the bit of paper that he screwed up and it says Vontae Mack every single time. And I feel like, yeah, if we're third round onwards, if he's on the board, Sam Roush every single time.
I've got to try and redevelop that video, that clip now. See if we can do it.
Oh, Diddy was in that film. That's controversial.
And on that note, we might have to end the show right there. So well done. Well done. Bo Callahan. Patriots, long time to see. Yeah. On that note, I think we better call it a night because you just took this podcast to a new low I don't think we'd ever see. Anyway.
Ironically, Vontae Mack played by the late great Chadwick Boseman, who of course was famous for being Black Panther in the Marvel films.
Yes, he was. He got. Oh, I thought you meant the quarterback. No, that's not. That's not what we're referring to. Usual.
No, but remember, Bo Callahan didn't get drafted number 1 overall. It was Vontae Mack.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're gonna call it a night there. We've just gone through the tight end positions now. We've only got quarterback and running back left to go at the offense, but since they are very, very weak classes, we'll probably leave that to the end. This coming Wednesday, we will be moving on to back to the defense, and we're going to be talking about the linebacker position. I think that seems to be the best option to take. We've taken edge. We've got to go through linebackers, defensive tackles, and then go through the secondary, which I'm looking forward to looking at these safeties because there's a lot of good safeties, although they're going to be a couple of them are going to be out of our reach. Obviously, we know the ones who, but there are some good safeties further down the board in the draft, and I suspiciously think New England might take one in the second, but that's just a hunch. But we'll get to that in the next week or so. So this coming Wednesday, we will be doing the linebacker position. I really, really, really want Jacob Rodriguez, but I think he's just going to be up the second round board a bit too far. But I love the guy. Watching him play against Oregon, he was all over the field. He was stopping literally everyone and anyone. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, Jacob Rodriguez is awesome. We'll get to it on Wednesday, obviously, but I don't think that's spoiler alert. I don't think that's a position we should be taking in the first 3 rounds of the draft, to be honest. But
if Perkins is available, then I think, in the back end, then potentially.
I'll give you some mid-round guys on Wednesday night. That would be good fits for New England on day 3 of the draft.
That's cool. We'll have Rob back on Wednesday as well, so hopefully it'll be the trio of us doing the linebackers, and hopefully you lot can all join us for that show as well. Thank you to everyone that's been watching. Thank you to everyone that's been listening. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out, your Gronk spike, the subscribe button, tell all your friends, follow us on social media platforms, follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple as well. And remember, guys, we are closer and closer to hitting those 100 subs. We want to do it before we get to the draft. We're now on 89 subs. We're 11 off. Can we do it for the draft? This would be absolutely huge help. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you to Kieran. Thank you to myself. Good night. God bless. Go Patriots.